Hi, Aditi.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
Aditi.
Aditi.
Hi, Swapna.
Hi,
Okay. So I've sent some images today. Um, let's just see that. So today I want us to start with drawing objects. And for that, we can start off with the objects, the pictures that I've sent on the group right now. But eventually, we should also get some objects in real life, put them in front of you, and try sketching those. So I want to show you how to do that. They don't have to be really any large objects or anything also. Anything that you have in front of you, you can recreate. So what we are trying to do, like last time I had made that sketch of the eraser. Eventually, we have to start making illustrations from real life also. And this is the practice that will help you to make, say, anything, in fact, urban sketching, landscapes, portraits, all of that. So the practice of being able to see objects in 3D, but translate them to 2D is what we want to try. So the first thing to do is just tackle drawing objects in the first place. So when we have an object like that, what I want you to try doing is making an illustration of this in a continuous line. So I'll try and attempt to show you this. You can, oh, sorry. You can try making it like this, just multiple lines for the lid, and then it has to be a very casual illustration. And your hand has to move very smoothly. So what we want to get is the right proportion, scale, size, placement, and then eventually also the right shading. So after we've made the illustration, I want you to notice each and every dark patch, medium patch, and every highlight, and see it as a shape in that place, not as a highlight, but just a light colored shape. Again over here, if I zoom in, you will see only a shape. This is like an inverted C shape, and below that there's a gray. Over here also there's just like a inverted heart shape, and then there's a texture, and then there's gray. So I want you to start distilling the information that you receive through your eyes into shades of light and dark, a particular shape, and not dwell on things like should now over here the lid is almost a horizontal line. It's attached at a horizontal line here. If you see it as a horizontal line, you need to draw it as a horizontal line. So if it is like this, and even over here, there's a very shallow curve. It's mostly just straight. If you see it like that, you draw it like that. That is what we're trying to do, sharpening your eyesight. So, and then the last one, same thing, the shape, two highlights in the right place, and subtle things like this. There's the corner of the table that is visible in this object. Now, between this object and this object, there are certain differences. So you should be able to catch those differences, because this is where you get a material identity. And just by looking at the sketch, you should be able to figure out what kind of material it needs or it can be. Okay, so you'll start off with this object. I'll demonstrate first, so have a look, and then you can begin your own. Don't make the object too large. You can just make it about this small, that's fine. The picture I've shared is, I think, a low resolution, so you might have to blow it up, magnify it a little bit, and then see it. So when you are drawing this object also, I want you to hold the book at an angle, and the object should be right in front of you. So if you have a screen that you're watching from, keep that screen in front of you so that your eye just moves in one plane. It moves from the screen to your book, screen to your book. If your book is horizontal, like mine is going to be, Archana, for this section, don't focus on the camera being on your book. I'd rather you hold the book in your lap and sit back in your chair, because if this is the plane of your eyesight when you're looking at the camera or the screen in front of you, when you look down, it becomes sideways. So then you're looking down. This causes loss of information, and you will start making some errors in proportion or placement. So I don't want that to happen. Try to not move your neck at all. Sit in a position by which either, so if you're seeing this on your phone should be right next to you. So that then your eyes move from the phone to the object that you're illustrating. Or if it's on the screen, then tilt your book so that your eye moves from that object to your book, just like that. Okay. So in my case now, I'm going to have to hope that I am good enough to be able to do this without the advantage of one single plane. But just observe the manner in which I'm trying to draw this. So first is make your hand very loose. And your sketch must have multiple lines. So even like this curve at the bottom, you may not get it in one shot. You have to think of it as carving this shape onto paper. You can draw proportions, you can measure stuff and say, okay, with proportion to the width of the body, and then at this height is where the spout comes. This is the U shape. So make all the scaffolding lines that you think might be necessary in order to arrive at the shape. Now remember, to make these kinds of lines, your hand has to move in multiple directions. So that pencil yoga, we did pencil yoga last week, right? All the lines that we needed to make and how our hand moved in that, try and recall that and move your hand in multiple ways. So normally our hand moves only like this or just like this. So if you try drawing all these lines like that, you're not going to get it. So move it horizontally, move the line like that, but don't move your book in order to make this line, because the moment you change the angle of the book, everything changes. Your sense of space changes, the angles change, and we don't want to risk any of that. Now, this shape that I'm making, when my pencil goes back and forth, it is going across an area back and forth. And I'm using that to help me make the shape, the curve shape that I'm making. What I'm not doing is this. Don't do that. Make a nice graceful line. The line has to be very light. So now this is a technique of recreating in a fine art style. And the difference between this style and some of the illustrations that we have done in the past is the degree of detail we expect to achieve. So here we are trying to make this as realistic as we can manage. In the past, the pictures that we have made, it's something like this. We did the perspective, but our lines were deliberately fun. They were not meant to be too realistic. Like over here. All this was supposed to be rather casual, right? But here we are focusing on getting the right shape, the right proportion, and spending time on that. So the difference between a fine art illustration and a very contemporary illustration that we done in the past is the degree of accuracy that you decide you want to arrive at. And in fine art illustration, it's all about refined lines, refined shapes. So you are expected to spend more time on this. It's not just about quickly getting that shape and finishing the illustration. You can keep tweaking it and keep getting better and better. And the whole purpose, the way I see it, is like I hear how they play test cricket. Do any of you or your family members follow cricket? What is the difference between a one-day match and a test cricket match?
Don't even ask me.
Okay, so this is this is the best way I can explain. So even I'm not much of a cricket fan. So I've asked people who watch cricket. I have an uncle who can watch a 5-day cricket match every day, and he does. And I have been quite surprised. So some of my friends who are equally enthusiastic about cricket, I've asked them, tell me, why are they doing this? But this is an equivalent of fine art in a way that it doesn't matter how many runs they make at the end of the day. The runs are just there because you need to keep some kind of score to know how much time has passed, I think. So the overs and the runs are all they just kept going and going. And I think they've set a 5-day limit because come say come do it in 5 days. Then we've got other work also to do. But the idea of the game is to appreciate that interaction between bowling and the batsman. So the batsmen take their time, 20, 30 overs, nothing happens, half a day, 3 runs. They just apparently just play. But what they're trying to do is perfect their stroke. So they are that whole thing about how the bowler who is perfecting his bowling throws the ball in a certain manner. And these like cricket aficionados can have names for when a ball comes in one direction and goes in another direction, or falls too short or falls too long. And they are studying all of that. So the whole game of the 5-day test is apparently to keep sharpening that interaction. It's completely over my head. I don't see it, but I can appreciate that it's about perfecting the craft. So in this case, it doesn't matter how many illustrations you make, how fast you make them, or like we were doing in travel sketching, assuming that we have only 20 minutes and we have to, that's like fatafat 2020 kind of cricket. That just get in as many illustrations as you can because we don't have time. But this that we are doing is not about volume. It's about quality of line, your observation, how much you can hone your observation. And if you can spend an entire week with just drawing one object, even that is good. So like this particular kettle that we're making, you can keep making the same kettle for a whole week, and every time you make it, you will see something else, see something new and different in the same object, and you'll start identifying that as something else. So a particular shape you can see as a shadow, and you will start shading it in a certain way today. And tomorrow you might be able to see that there is a subtle difference between one side of that shadow to another side. Then the next day you'll start seeing that the midtones also have a certain difference in dark to light and how light you can get. So that is observation. And the more you draw, your hand also starts making it differently. So the hand will also make lines much more subtly. It'll be able to create a very uniform gradation if needed. So that is what we have to work on. So don't worry about how many we get done. And of course, in this case, no using eraser. If you make the wrong shape, make it again and again and again, as frequently as you want to. And I would say that that itself would be a great achievement. To if you have 10 of these kettles, then that means that you have gone over that particular aspect 10 times. I would say it's almost as good as uh, multiplication tables. The more you say it, the more it embeds in your brain. So treat it just as that. And absolutely don't use an eraser. Focus on how many ways your hand moves this way and that, how lightly you can draw the line. Right. So once you created a shape that you're happy with, if you are looking at, now in my case, I can see my kettle and my and the reference image on the screen, and I can instantly tell what is going right, what is going wrong. So you should be able to see that in front of you. Now at this stage, you should make sure that your pencil is nice and sharp. For me, my sharpener has decided not to work today. So while you guys are drawing, I'm going to go and chisel my pencil a little bit and make a very nice sharp edge. Both my pencils have become a little dull. Okay. Nonetheless, let me try doing this. Once you are happy with your shape, then you will start to recreate some of the shapes of the reflections, the dark reflections over here. And only see it as a shape, nothing else. So when you're making these highlights and shadows, do try to sense where the shape is coming. Like over here, this is the oval or the flattened part of the lid. So these two shapes will come next to each other. And then there's a big highlight over here. And then there's a dark patch here. So do try to see these things, why a certain shape looks a certain way. Now for the shading, there is one very subtle light highlight in this area. And the rest is firstly just a light gray. Okay, another thing also is keep a spare paper handy so that you can use it as a guard sheet. Now here comes the true test of how light you can keep your hand. At some point, we will be using something like a blending stump or maybe even a cotton Q-tip to soften our lines. But let's wait for that. Right now, let's try just keeping our hand light enough to be able to do this. Try and get one even tone up to here, and then slightly reduce pressure as you come towards the right. And with reduced pressure, you can make, you can shade in the other direction. Make it slightly dark as you come here. So a nice subtle shade first. And then again in this, you can see a dark to light thing happening. So it's dark on top. So this is now our uniform pressure thing that we can proceed with. and slowly start increasing pressure. And that too, you can do this in the areas that you can see that dark. So I have this very subtle line for the lid, and here your sharp pencil will help. And have faith in what you're seeing. Now here this is again like the first 4 blocks that we have made. This is the effect is uniform pressure, but you can build this with pressure from building layer upon layer. Within this also, sometimes there are variations. So one section can be slightly darker. So you change the direction and make it darker. But here, obviously, I have increased pressure. Moving on to the other side. For this illustration, if you have one of those clutch pencils, mechanical pencils, you can use that. So this stage, if you examine, it just looks like shapes. You don't really see it as a metallic object or anything. So often, halfway through, there's a lot of self-doubt. Am I doing it right? Is it coming right? And it can tend to look a little inaccurate. But just you need to just check that the uh, part that you are shading, is it in the right place? And the shapes that you're making, are they close to what you see? That's all really you can do at this stage. So don't judge it for whether or not it's looking right at this point. So in the beginning, or maybe your first few sketches, sometimes this autocorrects in the first sketch itself. You realize how futile it is trying to judge your work halfway through. You trying to figure out whether you're on the right track or not is useless, because more often than not you think that what you're doing is not correct, but unless you finish it, there's no way of knowing whether you've been on the right track or not. I think it's the artist's version of Schrodinger's cat. You have to just finish the picture, and only then you can gauge whether or not some of the first few lines you drew were correct or wrong. And all of these, I would recommend mostly doing shading it with uniform pressure and building up the depth. In a few places, of course, you will see the lines very dark, make them very dark there. But in most places, it's just about adding a little shadow here, a little shadow there. So take your time with this. Okay, I'm gonna go and sharpen my pencil. I'll be back in a bit. Very often you will see when artists are doing pencil sketching, they will sharpen the pencil a lot right up to the end. Sometimes you'll also notice that the lead is almost an inch long and exposed. And then this part of the pencil shaped part is over here. So that is, again, for several reasons. One is to probably thin the tip so much that you can accurately see details without it being obscured with the pencil itself. So you're able to make these, just see the drawing much better. And with pencil, again, if you allow it to, it is in a sense self-sharpening. So you can keep rolling the pencil and making it sharp from all edges. So here I am trying to match the tone that I see in the illustration, in the reference image with the tone that I can make with the pencil. And this only works with uniform pressure to a large extent.
Aditi,
Yes.
what number pencil are you using?
I think this is a 2B because this is just one of those Apsara
Mhm.
school pencils.
Okay. I'm using HB, so you can see dark.
HB,
Not HB. Yeah, HB pencil.
it's just, is it an art pencil?
No, it's not an art pencil. It's a normal pencil. This one.
Ah, okay, okay. All right. No, this is good. This is good. So what are you saying? What is happening?
It's lot of lead is actually spreading.
Yeah, you need to have, do you have a guard sheet?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay. So keep that because lead is going to spread. That's the job. So you to in order for you it to not happen willy-nilly, keep your pencil sharp so that you
Okay.
can focus on a small area and just deposit lead right over there. Like even if it's like a small half a millimeter space, you are just darkening that small area at a time.
Okay.
So we have to control how many places our pencil travels to. That's the whole point. So your movement has to be very restricted and very precise. It's like trying to build this object one molecule at a time. Now, professionally, when pencil sketching is made, there are lots of tools with which you can create the highlights. This is not how they do it for the most part. There will be a white colored pencil, they use erasers. So there's multiple ways in which you can create a highlight after drawing. But that is for, uh, I guess, a different purpose. I would still recommend going by taking the harder route instead of going by what professional artists would do, because for them it's a matter of the final product, and it's not about trying to exercise their hand or trying to perfect their observation, because they've already done that. So now it's just a matter of using the best tools for the best result. But if you do that too soon, you will get the wrong result, in the sense that you will make a highlight in the wrong place. Then what is the point? When you do it like in this fashion, in my experience, what has been the case is that you are doubly careful and you're focusing more on the observation than the execution. That is what's important. And over time, you start becoming very confident with your line, and then you can take whatever tool is required for perfect execution. So I believe in artificial adversity. If you really want to get good at something, you can create some kind of adversity for yourself and try to function in that. It always helps. Like, for example, there was a time when the horn in my car just stopped working, and the model of that car was discontinued. I used to drive a gypsy, and the model was discontinued. So the spare part for the horn was not available. So for a good year or so, or even more, I don't even know whether I eventually got it fixed. I didn't have a horn for the car. And driving in, I think, in any city in India without a horn is another kind of meditation. And I remember for me, it just felt like, okay, that is it. I have to just allow every idiot to do whatever they want to do because I can't do anything anyway. All I had was a very strong, big vehicle. So if they tried to mess with me, they would be more hurt than I would be. So I had to be strong. So there's so many metaphors over here, if you think about it, that you just have to be strong enough that anyone coming in the middle of your path or banging against you or scraping against you is not going to throw you off balance. It's not going to hurt you. So in that sense, you strengthen yourself. And if you just allow people to pass, you realize that them being idiots on the road is not their fault. They're, I mean, they're living at their least, exerting themselves least. They've not been trained by somebody else. Nobody around them cares that they have better quality of driving or anything. The cops don't care. The licensing authorities don't care. Everything is like, just, this is the road, this is the vehicle. You more or less know, stay balanced, don't hit anybody, don't die, don't kill, and just do whatever. That's like the Indian philosophy. So if you just let it be, I realized they just weave around you. And I did not reach anywhere later because I could not honk my way through. I was very peaceful because there was nothing I could do any case. So it was an artificial adversity, but it was created. In my case, it was created. Now, in the case of the sketching, the artificial adversity is not using an eraser. It is handy. You can pick it up, you can erase your lines. But in that, you are not really digging into yourself to say, okay, I just don't have an eraser. What can I do? And again, for me, that experience happened quite by chance. I started sketching and I couldn't find an eraser. So it was about, okay, find the eraser or sketch. Where do you want to spend your time? And I decided, okay, let me just see. And there was so much fear that what if I make a mistake and I won't be able to erase. And what I realized was that because of that fear, I was sketching much slower. I was being much more careful because I didn't know whether my line was going to be right or wrong. And I had to ensure that it was not too wrong. And of course, until I drew it, I would not know. But then I drew it light. So in case I wanted to make any adjustments, that line would not look wrong in the larger picture. So what happens is that you find better ways of compensating for your adversity, and that helps to sharpen your skill much more than if you had an eraser and 10 times you're erasing and you're drawing the line. You just don't need it at all. Yeah. So the trick is to find ways to mitigate the after effects of that adversity. So think about stuff like if your line is wrong, how do you make sure that it is not too wrong? Meaning, if you had an eraser, you would just make any kind of line. You can still do that, but maybe make it lighter. Make it so light that if while shading, you can just go over it with the pencil subtly, that line will merge in the final picture. So in that, it has to be as light as that for you to be able to see from just 10 centimeters away from your drawing, something like that. So you will find your own ways. And there are only 2, 3 things that you need to pay attention to. You don't even really need to do 10,000 different things. It's all the same thing. Draw a light, subtle line, take some extra measurements, take your time drawing that line. And once you've drawn it, just forget it. Then you just move on. How's it going so far? Swapna, how are you doing? Nice. Very good. Very nice. Yeah, Archana is also very good. A little like Salvador Dali. Some lines are crooked, but it's looking very nice. It is looking like a metallic Salvador Dali kettle. Oops. Okay, so I'm moving on to the third picture now, which is this very nice ceramic urn. And we need to do the same thing again. Or before that, actually, why don't let's try drawing something from a real life. So do you have something like a jar or a small bottle or yeah, something like this? Swapna, do you have something in metal? Because glass is another monster altogether.
I have to check Aditi.
Go now. Just check in the house if you have something that is like a metal glass or container or just a jar box, preferably something that does not have too much of print around it, but like a subtle. If I were to take this, for example, it's not got a print, but it's got dark and light shadows, something like that. Just take 5 minutes, go and look in your house and plonk it in front of you on your desk and try to make that. Even I'll go look. This up. That should do, Archana, but do you have something that's more metallic? Like a cup like this, or just a container like that, a metal jar, maybe dabbas. Even kitchen tools are fine. If you have spoons, um, maybe a what other metal thing can we have in the kitchen? Cooking utensils in metal.
Is this okay, Aditi?
We
A
can try
ball.
that. Yeah, I think we can try that. Only that print will will disturb the surface a little bit, but that's okay. You can see some shade and light, and that's fine for now.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do it for now. This is what I've got. So that I get lots of different shades. But we can try whatever you have. So I'm keeping the cup in front of me like this. And I'm going to be seeing it from this angle. Let me show you. This is how I'm going to see it.
I got this, Aditi.
Arey, wow, very nice.
I
Tumbler.
found I have plastic at home.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can do this. 1 second. Oh, sorry. It's in the wrong direction. Okay, I'm adding 3 more pictures. And these are small studies in materials. So how do you practice or study different kinds of materials? Now we have again a gray ball which looks like a billiards ball. So it's a matte colored ball. And then we have something shiny, but it's a fuzzy shiny. And then we have something that's a sharp shiny. So each material has a different way of reflecting light. And when we are making illustrations in black and white, it's about that light reflection and also how objects that are reflected through it are seen. So there are so many subtle grays in this, so many shapes, and that is what gives this object its material identity. Now, one tip that I can give you is after some time, your eyes and your hand will get fatigued. By now, it is probably happening. You're either not seeing shapes correctly, or when you're shading, your hand is either shivering or suddenly in a depth. So, if you feel that happening, stop shading or stop drawing altogether. There is a certain fatigue that sets in, even for me, even if my illustration is going in the right direction. It's very not natural to happen. And go do something else for 5-10 minutes. See something else. Let your eyes rest on other things than what you are sketching. So this allows for the old information to be washed away from your brain. And then when you come back, you will see the same thing in a different light. And you will see your shapes much more objectively. You will be able to tell if there are any situations where your line is going wrong and you can correct it better before it's gone too far. So the only way I can explain it is because the brain is constantly refreshing itself. It um, it learns to, when you change its atmosphere, it is now required to see different things. So it will see different things. And then when you require it to see your sketch again, it will come back and see it anew. Though it is familiar, it will see it newly. And whatever parameters it needs to discern, like what is the material, what is the distance, what are we trying to do over here, all of that is again reset or reevaluated. almost as if this was a hard reboot of software or like your phone. So it's like watching it with a formatted brain, and you will see better. So that rest is not going to make you forget what you're seeing as much as refresh it and show it to you better. So again, this is the temptation of finishing something in one shot. Fine art illustration does not work like that. It is, like I said, like a test match, apparently. I don't want to claim that I know more than I'm saying. So that's the only analogy I can find. I guess in a sense, maybe it's also like perhaps fine dining, where it's more about the quality of the preparation than the quantity. That's one big thing that separates the two. The time that the chefs spend in making that preparation, they could probably be creating something for days or with a lot of skill required. So I guess anything in fine art or food, or I suppose music as well, is about refinement. And that differentiates it from the mundane, something that's very regular, that's very everyday.
Aditi,
Yeah.
my class turned out quite different, but
1 second. Nice. How do you like it?
okay, I think the perspective is gone.
No, I think there is perspective. See that the top and the bottom ovals make sense. Can you hold the container up? Can I have a look at what you have drawn? Yeah. No, it's good. I think it's very good. So only the top is slightly wider than you have drawn it in the picture, but I can see that your proportions are quite good.
Okay.
So now the shadows, the inside shadows need to be darker. Can you see that? So the oval on the top that you've made, the shadow towards the bottom of that oval need to be darker. Then it'll look like a hollow. Because right now it's looking like it's a plain dish on top, almost like a lid.
Okay.
That
I'll
you
try.
change. Yeah. Swapna, how are you doing? Oh, you found another container. This is what your pencil holder or something. Aha, nice. Oh, this is actually a very nice topic because now you will have like 6 or 8 different shades on the every facet that has been cut along the edges. So you can do almost like a flat shading through those different flat faces, and then like that variable pressure along the top. I should get one of these objects for sketching. That's very nice. Good plan. Cool. So the homework for you all will be to look for different materials and try to look for something that's plain without any color and try to sketch that just like that. So now we've spent about an hour sketching the first kettle, another half an hour for the second sketch. So I want you to give it a lot of time. And it's perfectly fine if you don't finish sketching that object, but don't try to rush it. So if it's half an hour that you need to take that half an hour. Don't try to finish it in 10 minutes for the sake of finishing it. It will, I mean, that has its advantages, but I don't want you to do that. I want you to slowly, each line, think about how it's going and what you should do and how you should, before you put it on paper, what you think it should be like. All right. Okay. Next week, we will be doing portraiture. So human faces. All right. Don't ditch. Don't run away. All right. I'll see you then next week.
See
Have a
you.
nice weekend. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Archana.